In Plato's Republic, Socrates discusses what it means to be a just person, and he examines what it means to be a just person by taking a look at the ideal state, because he and the folks that he's discussing the issue with have some trouble deciding initially what it means to be a just person, and they say, well, maybe if we can idealize the perfect state, we can infer some things from that state that we could also apply to the person. So it's an argument by analogy. The argument simply being that the state would be organized in a similar way as would an individual or a just state would. And through examining the ideally just state, they argue that they have some intermediate conclusions anyway, that there would be philosopher kings, these wise, enlightened, benevolent people that would be able to make the best decisions for the collective good. There would be a warrior class that would ensure that the society is protected. There would be people that could produce various goods. And similarly, in a individual, reason, the intellect, should be able to control and order and direct our passions and our desires and our basic needs, and our needs in general, the things that drive us. And so the philosopher king would mimic or mirror the intellect, and the intellect would be able to keep in check our passions and drive them toward productive ends. The state would be able to flourish if it was governed by the philosopher kings. The individual would be able to flourish if governed by the intellect. Ryan Trimble, in his 2014 article, The Desire for More is Killing Us, Lessons from Plato's Republic, focuses in on some exchanges that concern consumption and our tendency in some cases as a society and as individuals to focus on the acquisition of more and more material things. And Trimble points out how the ancients, how Plato, Socrates, and many of the folks of that age understand full well the dangers for the state and for the individual to focus too much on simply acquiring things. And he quotes the Republic. He quotes an exchange between Socrates and Glaucon. And Socrates is laying out this imaginary city that they're going to examine, and Glaucon complains that they're just being provided the basic necessities, and that's not going to be enough. He says, Socrates, it seems that you make your people feast without any delicacies. True enough, says Socrates, they'll obviously need salt, olives, cheese, boiled roots, and vegetables. If you were founding a city for pigs, Socrates, wouldn't you fatten them on the same diet? Then how should we feed these people, Glaucon? In the conventional way. If they aren't to suffer hardship, they should recline on proper couches, dine at a table, and have the delicacies and desserts that people have nowadays. And Socrates says, okay, fine, I wanted to examine a healthy city, but if you insist that we examine a city with a fever, then so be it. And soon this list of luxuries expands, and Socrates says, well, if we're going to have couches and tables and other furniture, we have to also add delicacies such as perfumed oils and incense, and prostitutes and pastries, and gold and ivory. And how are we going to pay for all this? The society won't be able to produce all these luxuries internally, so we'll have to adopt an expansionist, warmongering foreign policy. And when we do this, we're going to conquer other peoples and acquire their goods, and then we'll have to conquer more and more and more. And you can see pretty quickly how this is going to lead to the deterioration of what was at one time what seemed to be a pretty just state. You're going to have a citizenry that is infected with this desire for more and more and more, and they're going to find, even if they don't realize it, that once they get on this path, it's pretty insatiable. You've got to be able to recognize as a people and as a person the limit of your means, keep in check your desire for more. It's okay to consume some. It's also okay to enjoy some of the finer things in life. But if that's your primary focus, it's going to lead to the downfall of the state and the downfall of the individual. And that's really the primary message of this article by Trimble. He provides a couple of different quotes. He talks about minimalism. It's a modern trend where people are downsizing. One of the extreme examples would be the folks that live in those miniature houses that you see on television sometimes, these little bitty trailers where you've got a bunk bed right underneath it. You've got the kitchen. Right here you've got a couch. You've got a porch that's about as wide as this chair. Some people can be happy and live that way. There's a good book called Your Money or Your Life. I forget the authors, but they make the basic case that if you want to have more and more stuff, you're going to have to work more and more to pay for that stuff. And so when you decide to upgrade your car and get that new car, and you take into account that payment, recognize the additional amount of time you're going to have to sell or sacrifice to be able to pay for that car, and realize that you're selling your life. And so if you can learn to live with much less, you can work much less and perhaps focus on developing your talents, reading, hiking, enjoying nature, expanding your mind, hanging out with friends, developing relationships, maybe doing more meaningful things that don't cost anything at all and might be more enjoyable and fulfilling than working at whatever job it is that you have. Now, if you've got a job that's immediately and directly fulfilling and fantastic, maybe that wouldn't be the case. You've got lots of assets, so it doesn't matter. Maybe that would be all right. But Your Money or Your Life, it's a good, a relevant book. And so, yeah, he's making the case that the ancients understood that this focus on materialism and consumption, it's not sustainable either for a society or for an individual. It's going to lead to a deterioration of your character and also of the social character. But it's not the case that you have to completely shun yourself or shun all material goods and enjoy some of the finer things in life. Sometimes Trimble mentions that Socrates himself liked to go shopping, at least in a special Socratic sort of way. One of his friends asked Socrates why he liked to go shopping, and Socrates replied, "I love to visit the market to discover just how many things I am perfectly happy without."